Hey y'all, Coach in the Fight here. Got Stacy with me.
Hello everyone.
We are continuing this series on Similitude 9. We've already made it through the first 12 verses of Similitude 9 and we're picking up on verse number 13.
Yeah, this will take us number 13 through 21 and we might go a little further.
We might go a little farther. It depends on how long it takes. So what can you tell us about what we're going to hear about?
Well, what we're about to read and talk about are they're getting now prepared to start building the tower. So they're starting to gather the stones, and the men have been called, and they're about to start building.
Right, those angels are about to start getting the stones from the mountains that we talked about in the last section, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you've missed part 1 of this series on chapter 9, Similitude 9, you might want to go take a look at that because you've already missed the part about the different mountains, and you're going to start hearing about the stones, I guess, next, and the angels that will actually build this tower.
Right. So with this series, with this section, we're going to let me do the reading and you do the explaining of each verse.
So you want to read this time?
Yeah, I believe I'll do the reading.
Well, we did talk about in the last section how this may not be a similitude. Actually, how Hermas had actually completed all of the similitudes, and this may not be a similitude. It may just be an explanation of what Hermas heard from the church back there in visions, in the third vision.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because it said that after I had written the similitudes, and he begins to now explains what he's about to talk about.
But I guess if you're going to become the reader, then I guess that's going to switch the leadership position over to me, I guess, if you're going to become the reader.
And that sounds good to me.
Well, if that's going to be the case, we're going to switch it to black. And poof, we're black.
That's better on my eyes.
Well, Alright, y'all. So we Hermas Academy Black now. The reason why we did black in the first place because it saved people on their battery power, those listening to owning on phones and tablets and stuff. It doesn't use as much power. And if they read it at night or listen to it at night, it doesn't hurt their eyes as much as like you say. But we're going to go switching it over. Alright, well, I guess you're going to pick it up in verse 13.
Verse 13. In the middle of the plain, he showed me a huge white rock, which rose out of the plain. And the rock was higher than those mountains and was square, so that it seemed capable of supporting the whole world.
Alright, so now we got to get a little bit of background for those who didn't bother to go back and look at the first part. The angel of repentance, who we found is, who did we say he was? Uriel?
Yes, Uriel.
Has taken an individual named Hermas and is showing him in the form of like similitudes or visions or parables. He's not really in a trance, but he's seeing supernatural stuff. And he's already showed Hermas these 12 mountains from whom these 12 mountains who represent the Israelites or the bloodline Israel. Now, after he's shown him these 12 mountains, he's now looking at a plain, which represents the multitude or the Gentiles or everybody else on the planet. And in the middle of this plain, you have this rock starting to appear, this huge rock that is bigger than all of the mountains and everything, but it's starting to come up out of the plain. And what does it say here? And that it seemed capable of supporting the whole world. The Shepherd of Hermas has a lot of mystery to it. It keeps us in suspense a lot. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this rock represents Jesus Christ. It represents Yehoshua HaMashiach. It represents the Son of God.
Okay, one of the questions that I have is, why is this rock square?
Oh, I don't know if I have an answer for that. I'd have to think about that. Let me pray on it, and then maybe by the end of this video, the Father give me an answer on why it's actually square. But do remember that all of the stones that we're going to hear about have to be square as well.
Right.
And so, but, you know, I don't think that really answers the question on why the whole tower is square. I think it is significant, but we'll wait for that answer. All right, you ready to go on?
Mm-hmm. Number 14. It looked to me to be old, yet it had a new gate, which seemed to have been newly hewed out of it. Now that gate was bright beyond the sun itself, insomuch that I greatly wondered at its light.
Right. So you have this rock who, we represent it to be, like we said, the Savior, the Christ, and it also represents the church, right? We found that out in the earlier section. I know it's, maybe I may be confusing it a little bit, but it also represents the church, who was created first of all. The church was created even before the earth was created. The church was here from the beginning of time. But now you notice that he's talking about this gate that's in the middle of this rock, like this gate had been recently cut out. That gate itself represents the way, or Jesus, or the Christ, on how we're actually supposed to get into the tower.
Okay, well, that is something new. I was wondering what the gate was representing, and it makes sense that the gate is the way, the entrance.
Yeah, and everybody has to go through the Messiah in order to get into the tower. And remember, it is this tower that is going through the tribulation and into the millennial age. Those who find themselves inside the tower will be living in the millennial age, what we call the kingdom of heaven, where the creator of all things, or the creator of heaven and earth, comes down and actually takes up his throne on the planet Earth for the first time and becomes the king of the planet.
Okay, I'm just still bewildered and amazed that it makes so much sense now that the gate is, the entrance.
How many times have you read this book?
I've read Similitudes, I believe, just once, but
once.
Yeah.
But you've heard it a few times.
Yeah, I've heard it lots of times.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. You have to. This is a book. When you talk about reading between the lines, every time you read it, you're gonna get new information.
Yeah, there's gonna be definitely something different that you missed the last time.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so that's why we're here, to kind of straighten some of this stuff out. But you ready?
15. About the gate stood 12 virgins, of which 4 that stood at the corners of the gate seemed to be the chiefest, although the rest were also of worth, and they stood in the 4 parts of the gate.
Now, we touched on these 12 virgins the last time. We kind of jumped ahead. What are they? Patience, power, continence, and faith are the 4 strongest virgins that he's talking about there. And they have 8 more offspring that come from those, stuff like long suffering, cheerfulness.
Yeah, each of the 4 strongest have 2 more. I guess you would call them offsprings.
Right, and it's when you think about, and I know we're jumping ahead. When you think about how they actually come from one another, it's kind of amazing to think about. But we're going to get into that a little bit later. Okay, now, but what we need to notice about this verse is how these 12 virgins are standing by the gate, as if they are the gatekeepers.
Well, they really are the gatekeepers, because if you don't have them, you're definitely not going into the gate.
Right. We have the stone there, which is representing the church, which is representing the tower, and all of us want to be in this tower. And this stone also had, or this rock he calls it, this rock has a gate with an entrance cut out in it. But in order for, which represents Yahushua HaMashiach, but in order for us to get through this gate, we have to actually be carried by the virgins, as the word is written. These virgins are actually the ones who's going to carry us through the gate.
Yeah, you have to have all of the patience, the long suffering, the kindness, the cheerfulness in order to get into this tower.
Okay, we may need to touch on those again, who all they are. But let's go on to verse 16.
It added also to the grace of those virgins that they stood in pairs, clothed with linen garments and decently girded, their right arms being at liberty, as if they were about to lift up some burden. For so they were adorned and were exceedingly cheerful and ready. All
right, so these virgins, like what they represent is spirits. The spirit of power, the spirit of faithfulness, the spirit of cheerfulness. And Stacy is showing it to me over here in the book. Let's go on down here and look at them. What verse is that?
That's number 142.
All right, so here are the virgins that he's talking about here in verse 142. You want to tell us about who they are?
The first is called faith. The second, continence. The third, power. The fourth, patience.
Now these are the strongest ones. These are the big girls. These are the each one of these are standing at the four corners of the gate, right? And then, but they have these, I don't want to call them lesser angels, that, like you say, they are born from the stronger ones. And but does it say each one of, like, power has two offspring and patience has two separate offspring?
Yeah, they said that they're the chief, but these other two have worth also.
All right, so tell them about those. Who are they?
Simplicity, innocent, chastity, cheerfulness, truth, understanding, concord, and charity.
And like we said in the last class, you really want to pull out your dictionary and look these up so you can get a deep understanding of what these words actually mean. Especially ones like chastity and concord. Some of those I really didn't even know what they meant at all until I looked them up in the dictionary. All right, we're ready to go on?
Yes.
All right, 17.
When I saw this, I wondered with myself to see such great and noble things. And again I admired upon the account of those virgins, that they were so handsome and delicate, and stood with such firmness and constancy, as if they would carry the whole heaven.
These are some strong women here. These virgins here they are capable of carrying all of humanity, and that's what their job is, to carry humanity. And you can imagine how strong and tough these ladies truly are. But we find out that they're kind of meek and they're kind of shy and kind of humble, and they won't hang around in the midst of turmoil and trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you think of I know he's using the word virgins, and when you think of that, you automatically think of the woman, the person itself. But take yourself back to the spiritual side, how faith does carry the whole world, truth does carry the whole world, patience does carry the whole world.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing to think about. Hermas is actually seeing these people.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not really in a trance or a vision as he was in the first book of Hermas, which is called Visions. Here it's like he's actually putting his eyes on it and seeing these women walk around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's odd to think about too.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, you want to go on to 18?
Yeah. Number 18. And as I was thinking thus within myself, the shepherd said unto me, What thinkest thou within thyself? Why art thou disquiet, and fillest thyself with care?
Well, it looks like Hermas is what do you say, looking disquieted here. He's kind of looking odd. I guess he has a big question mark on his face, wondering what's going on.
Yeah, the shepherd is asking him, what are you thinking, and why have you gotten quiet, and what are you concerned about? Why do you fill yourself with care? Why are you so concerned?
Man, you just showed me some mountains. You just showed me a big rock and
that rolls up out of a
and now you got these virgins dancing around this thing, and these spiritual virgins at that. Yeah, I'm a little puzzled. All right, you ready to go on?
Number 19. Do not seem to consider as if thou were wise, that thou doest not understand, but pray unto the Lord that thou mayst have ability to understand it. What is to come thou cannot understand, but thou seest that which is before thee.
Right. So, he's telling Hermas basically, don't try to figure all this out.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first time we hear it or read this book, we're not going to figure everything out. I read this book for the first time back in, I think, 1994 or 1995, and it kind of went over my head like a C-130. I never realized what was going on inside of this book. Now, I knew it was real special at the time, but it was only years and years later, and having read it over and over, that some of these things started to make sense. And that's what he's telling Hermas here. He says, don't concentrate on figuring everything out, just understand what it is that you understand. If you whatever it is that you can get, whatever it is that you can grasp, focus on that. Understand that part.
Yeah, he's telling him to not be concerned about those things that you don't understand, but focus on, the things which are before you right now.
Right.
Start thinking about those things.
But this is Hermas Academy, and I'm gonna try to tell you everything I know about it. I'm gonna spill my guts on the subject. Lord willing, I don't say nothing He's gonna want me to say, but I'm gonna try to tell you everything I can, at least everything I know about this little book. All right, ready to go on?
Mm-hmm. Number 20. Be not therefore disquiet at those things which thou cannot see, But get the understanding of those things which thou doest see.
Yeah, so don't if you don't understand it, don't spend time on it trying to figure that part out, because there's some stuff in here that you're not gonna grasp real quick. Let me tell you, some of this stuff take years.
Yeah, it's a lot of this stuff is very mysterious.
Yeah, but it's all true,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all practical too. We really need to learn this stuff, and we really need to learn it quick here in this day and age. Like we said in the other classes, this information was supposed to have been already taught in our churches. Hermas, the shepherd of Hermas, was supposed to have been included in our Bible. It was at one point, but over the years, the Catholic Church fell out of love with it, and when they started canonizing the books, this was one of the books they left out. But that doesn't take any credibility away from the book, because you got to remember they also left out Enoch.
I think that if the shepherd of Hermas would have been left in our Bible, the church would not be in such a mess as it is now, because it's just so important, and the life lessons apply to daily living. So this is a great book.
Well, you remember the Reverend Pastor Deacon Dr. Doug. He would have been offended immediately, and he wouldn't have never took the pulpit after going through some of the portions of the book to talk that explains who the false prophet is.
Oh, yeah.
And, the church would be much different if this book had been a part of it. We wouldn't have so many sheep and so many wolves in sheep's clothing down there, and us as individuals, we would not be so quick to be angry, or quick to be selfish, or quick to be impatient. We'd understand these things to be bad for us, and we'd be trying to take on these good virgins that he's talking about. I agree, the church would be much different.
So maybe the Catholic Church didn't fall out of love with it. Maybe they just had, it was intentional not to keep it in there.
Well, I can't really argue with that. It seems like some of the stuff, that they did take out was to hide the truth from us. A lot of the books that were left out, a lot of the books you find in the Apocrypha and stuff, do have, a lot of information as far as the end time scenario. We read a book on YouTube. What was it called? The Apocalypse of Elijah or something like that. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine what the world would be like if that book had been taught in the churches? But the Catholic Church would never let that happen.
All right.
It implicates them and shows them in a bad light, and they weren't gonna stand for that. All right, you ready?
Number 22. And when he had said this unto me, I looked up, and behold, I saw 6 tall and venerable men coming. Their countenances were all alike, and they called a certain multitude of men, and they who came at their call were also tall and stout.
All right, now we're talking about angels. Now, we did a class, and we need to do it again on angels. And, one of the things about angels, we call everything up there angels. There are seraphim up there. There are, what are some of the other things? I can't even remember. There are thrones up there. There are archangels up there. These are all spiritual beings. There are powers. There are principalities. But us as mere humans, we call everything angels. But we're looking here. We're being introduced to these 6 angels. These are the venerable angels, the top angels. I believe it doesn't name them in the book anywhere at all, but I believe these are the angels like Michael and Gabriel and Phinehal and Uriel and Raphael, and the top angels, the archangels that are over the lesser angels. But then, and so these are the angels that are there, really close to the Father Creator there. But then he's talking about these other ones. He says, and they called a certain multitude of men, and they came at their call, and they called a certain multitude of men. Now this multitude of men represents the lesser angels. These are kind of more of the angel that we think about when we think about movies and different stuff like that, where you have these beings that are running around helping people and doing stuff. We kind of think of them as not really having free will or not being able to do anything on their own, just kind of like order takers. These are the lesser angels that are actually going to be involved in building this tower. But it is the 6 venerable angels that are commanding them, that are directing them and telling them what to do in and out, bringing these stones and such.
Yeah, these would be the angels that you would think of that would be going back and forth, taking out prayers,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, they handle, you think of carrying your prayers to heaven is not really a small thing, but, in the bigger picture, it kind of is. And that's one of the things they do. When we say prayers, they carry our prayers up to the Father. All right, where are we at?
Number 23. And those 6 commanded them to build a certain tower over that gate. And immediately there began to be a great noise of those men running here and there about the gate, who were come together to build the tower.
Okay, now we need kind of a little time chart here, because this book does talk about the chronology of the end time scenario, and when he's telling them to build this tower here, we kind of got to understand what part in history this tower actually started to be built, because this is past tense that he's talking about here. This part's already been done. All right.
Okay.
Right, because he's going to start talking about the 10 that was put in there first. The 10 first it was the 10 stones that were put in, followed by the 35, and followed by the 45.
Yeah, but that's much later on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, but we are understanding that it is these 6 individuals that are building this tower, along with the help of these lesser angels.
Right. Number 24. But those virgins which stood about the gate perceived that the building of the tower was to be hastened by them, and they stretched out their hands as if they were to receive somewhat from them to do.
All right, so these are the virgins who know that they have a key role in this thing. They have a very, very important role as far as, who's going to be put in the tower and how they're going to get there. We found out later that nobody can enter the tower, even Yehoshua HaMashiach himself, even the Christ himself, had to take on these virgins before he could get into the tower. We find that out.
Yeah, he had to go through all of this stuff in order to get into the tower. So, and it will tell us that the Father says, you make sure don't nobody come through this tower without going through these virgins.
Yeah, so they are very, very important. And so now that they realizing that the tower is being built, they're like, hey, it's go time. Let's get ready, ladies. It's time to go.
Right. Number 25. Then those 6 men commanded that they should lift up stones out of a certain deep place and prepare them for the building of the tower. And there were lifted up 10 white stones, square and not cut ground.
Now this is what we're talking about. The first 10 white stones. These are the first patriarch. These are people like Seth, Enoch, Enosh, Methuselah, Mahalalel, Jared, Noah. I wish I had my book. I would count them out. Matter of fact, I'm going to get my book and count them out. Go ahead, Say.
I'm still sitting here amazed at what you're talking about. I was wondering about the 10 white stones. I've only read it once. I've listened to it several times, but I've only went through it once. And like we were saying before, when you first read it, there are going to be more questions than there are answers. So to hear that these 10 white stones are the 12 maybe patriots also, or not patriots.
We're going to count them out. I'm looking here for a chart that I just put in one of the classes not too long ago. And let me see. I hope I don't put my foot in my mouth by pulling this chart up. But when we look here, if we count back from Noah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Wow.
Yep, those are all the way up to the flood. See, you have to understand there's a book called Adam and Eve that talks about how when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they landed on the holy mountain. This was a holy mountain where only they dwelt. Cain and his wife, he took his wife and left the holy mountain and went down to the plain area there where they started having a bunch of kids and started having a bunch of people to be born. While all of this was going on, these people that we read about here, they remained on the holy mountain. The only time Noah actually left the holy mountain was during the flood. Before that, he never came down.
So these people are Adam, Seth, Enoch,
Enos,
Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah.
Yeah, those are the first 10. All right, let's just go on. Notice he says a certain deep place. So these people, the deep place that he's talking about, you remember the Messiah had to go in when they put him in a tomb. The story is that he went back and he brought these people back, people like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, that's that deep place that he's talking about. Those people were, had been dead and gone for a long time. He went back in and got those people and started bringing them into the tower, and that's what this is talking about. This part of the tower, they're going to make up the foundation of this tower, those first 10 individuals.
That makes so much sense to me.
All right, and notice that they were square and not cut round. All right, these were some serious dudes back there.
Right.
26.
26. Then those 6 men called the 10 virgins to them and commanded them to carry all the stones that were to be put into the building, and having carried them through the gate, to deliver them to those that were about to build the tower.
Okay, so now the way this is working, you have these 12 virgins that have to go get each and every stone and carry them, all right, into the gate. In other words, they have to put on the characteristics of these 12 individuals in order to make it through the gate at all. Like it says right here, and having carried them through the gate to deliver them to those that were about to build the tower. So the virgins have to carry the stones and then give them to the angels who actually do the building.
Right.
All right, ready to go on?
27. Immediately the virgins began, all of them together, to lift up those stones that were before taken out of the deep.
Right, so you have all 10 of them together, where these 12 virgins are going to lift them up in one big heap and carry them all in at one time.
Number 28. And they also stood about the gate, did carry stones in such a manner that those stones which seemed to be the strongest were laid at the corner, and the rest were put into the sides.
Right. So, and that's significant. That's a significant element to how this tower is being built. The stronger individuals will make the outside part. Even today, we're gonna get to 2019. Some of the portions of this tower will be built even in today's time. And out of all of us who are considered stones in this tower, the ones of us who are the strongest will be placed on the outside of the tower, whereas those who were smaller because they had to be chipped away so much, or weaker because they had clefts or cracks in them and such that made it in, they will be placed on the inside of the tower.
Right. Well, you think about how you would build a house.
Yeah, or a brick wall or something. Remember that brick wall we had? At one time we had a big brick wall that fell down.
Right. Mhm. Yeah.
And that was my first time ever seeing that type of construction. When I had to put that wall back up. And the thing about it, that only on the outside are big, strong, big, heavy rocks. But when you look past those big and heavy rocks, you find all kinds of little chips and stuff in there. It's like filled up with little bitty stuff.
Right. Well, I would think that maybe 2 of the ones that would be the strongest on the outside would be Enoch and Shem.
Enoch, Shem definitely would be out there. Let's see, Noah would be out there. Who
maybe
else?
Adam.
Adam definitely would be out there. I can't remember enough about all of those guys, but you don't hear much about Lamech or Noah. Remember Lamech? He tripped a little bit when his son was born. Noah came out white,
right? And
Lamech thought he was an angel or somebody. Mm-hmm. That's about all you hear about him. And
you have Mahalalel.
You don't
Canaan,
hear much about Jared. Yeah, you don't hear. So yeah, I believe you're right. Those ones that we hear about are maybe the strongest ones. All right. Now where Enoch is filling out, I don't know. Enoch may not even be in there at all. Because he wasn't in the deep. Remember, Enoch didn't die.
Right.
All right. And so when we're counting out those 10, we may have to replace Enoch with Shem.
Maybe so, yeah. Because
Enoch didn't die. Enoch was translated. And so he wasn't in the deep at all. But, we're getting we're reading between the lines maybe too much now. All right, is that it?
That's it for that section. And the next section we goes on and we talk talk more about building the tower.
Alrighty, y'all. We're gonna continue this series, like we said, like an ant will eat an elephant. We're gonna chip it off, bits and pieces at a time. It's about 300 and almost 400 verses in this book, in this chapter here. So we're gonna do it in smaller sections. So you guys hit the subscribe button and hit that bell button so you can see these classes as they come out.
And we're looking forward to hearing comments about the class.
Yeah, definitely leave comments or questions, or if you're getting anything out of it, something that we might have missed, let's put it in the comments, and hammer this thing out. There's a lot of information in here, and we really need it all. All right, with that, I think we're gonna close it out.
Shalom.
Shalom.